भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहैः ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः. So let me just recollect a few ideas. Very clearly, what Patanjali would like to give us is the states of mind right from the level of we are interacting with the world outside to the level of silence that is there deep inside, and he's trying to give us the various stages. So a normal state of peaceful being is a state called as samadhi, and this samadhi, which is basically in a simple way, it is supposed to be samadhana. Samadhana means that I'm like a still water lake, water in the lake. So that's what is the way stillness that is there. And then, but at the same time, that I have a perception with the world outside. Therefore, my perception is there. It still does not actually disturb my peace of mind, but then it can be along with the peace of mind. That's why it is called as Sahita Prajna Sahita Samadhi. That's why it is called as Samprajnatha Samadhi. Prajna means my awareness, consciousness with the world outside. Now, this awareness can be in different ways. This is where Patanjali's extraordinary contribution. He says that we have so many faculties within us. And one of the very strong faculties that we have developed is the faculty called questioning. Ever since this questioning started, man started progressing. And then when the child is something like 5-6 years old, the questioning started. And this is what is the extraordinary ability of a human being, species. So we question. In fact, we should never condemn the questioning in whatever may be the reason. So therefore, this is something which is necessary for us. Unfortunately, several institutions and institutionalized religions and all that, they said you should not question. You should accept whatever it is. Actually, by saying that, we are trying to curtail the growth of a human being. And a situation comes where you are not questioning at all, you accept as it is. That's what is the communistic rule, socialistic rule. You cannot question whatever it is there. Whereas this culture has accepted this questioning, appreciated this questioning. That's what I was last time also saying, that we have such things like Prashnopanishad. We have questioned, actually every Upanishad is like questioning. How this happens, how that happens. Question mark itself is the name of the Upanishad. So we have questioned very clearly, we have encouraged the question, we have honored the question. All those things are there. But at the same time, that we always said that there is some region where intellect cannot help us to understand that. Because whatever the question that we do, and whatever the intellect functions is in the range of, in the region of whatever that the world gives us, nothing beyond that. Anything that you see in the intellect, it is nothing but the ideas, laws, and situation that's about the world outside. Nothing beyond the world. It cannot explain anything. Like the way that I say, what are the things which are beyond the explanation, beyond the world, beyond the questioning kind of thing? It's the beauty of a rose. Rose is beautiful. How do you say that it is beautiful? Can you give any logic for that? We can't do that. Similarly, a love between the mother and a child. The mother really looks for the child. And these are the kind of things that means there is a huge range of activity where we are interacting, but at the same time, it's not within the range of questioning intellect. And this is what rightful kind of a questioning is, what is called as vitarka. I mean, questioning for the sake of so many other things, let's not worry about it, but the useful, rightful way, because intellect is such an extraordinary, wonderful tool. Every question can really take you to a higher level of dimension of understanding. Once I question and understand, there is no question of going back on that. You see, children are like that. They don't have that kind of. You tell them 10 minutes, half an hour that you say that, this is bad. This you should not eat. Chocolate you should not have it because it's bad for your teeth and this and that. All that they listen. They listen. What do you want? Chocolate. Finish. What happened to you? You're just lost. Don't go with your friends and that fellow is bad, this and that. He listens to all those things. Yeah, what do you do? Now I'll go to pray with him. Where is the question? That means to say, the question did not allow them to go to a higher level. So, but whereas when we are adult, when we are grown up, we question for the sake of going up to the higher level. Question cannot be used as a tool. And intellect cannot become like a tool for us to put somebody down. You see that in the moment that somebody is getting hurt by the intellect, you should never look for that. That's what is the question. Vitarka, right kind of a questioning is that which makes the other person also really, the whole quality enhances. That's why we have this idea of Shankaracharya. When he had a discussion with Mandana Mishra, it was supposed to be a samvada. You see, the beauty of samvada is that nobody is in suffering and it elevates the whole process of it. One of the reasons why that elevation that has taken place in the process is after the whole samvada, the knowledge has gained to such a degree that the person who lost, that is Mandan Mishra, he said, I will become your disciple. I will become as a follower of you. So this is the way it is. In the normal course of time, what happens is that if you defeat somebody, then that fellow will come with a vengeance. But here it is not like that. And not only that, the judge who was there, she was so impressed by Shankaracharya, the argument. She also joined as a disciple to Shankaracharya. That's why it is called a samvada. Similarly, we have another samvada which I was quoting about the way that Krishna and Arjuna, they discuss. And then Arjuna surrenders himself to Krishna. He did not get affected by the argument that Krishna proposed. In fact, many times Krishna proposed the argument as if that you are a stupid fellow standing here. Like that he says. But in spite of it, it didn't even affect him. On the other hand, it elevated him. So that means you should recognize the greatness of what is called as the tarka, and right kind of a tarka, right kind of a logic argument. This itself is very, very important. In fact, to be able to do that kind of a tarka, not influenced by anything else, but only thing is knowledge is the focus, this itself is a great gain. And that right kind of tarka happens only when you have peace of mind behind it, not influenced by anything. That's why vitarka, along with, samadhi, along with vitarka, that means to say savitarka samadhi. See, we need to recognize the greatness of it. It's not just simply arguing or anything like that. And there is such a beautiful exhibition of that, saying that in their discussion, there was no question of unnecessary heatedness and disturbance and all that. There was a very beautiful test that Shankara and Mandan Mishra, when they were discussing, the idea was that they used to have the flower garland, and the final element is that it's like a practical test is that whose garland does not fade away is the winner. Why? Because he's very cool. If you are agitated, if you are disturbed, then your garland will fade away. You see, litmus test kind of a thing. So this is the way it indicates that the right kind of vitarka is only when you have a samadhi behind it. You are peaceful inside. Normally what happens when we are arguing, a couple of arguments later, you can see what will happen to, the whole barometer goes up, breaking. Whereas right kind of tarka is where is savitarka. But then after giving the idea of savitarka, he says that there is another aspect within us. We all have it. And that is what is where you are beyond the tarka. That means you transcend the tarka. Earlier I gave the idea that you reject the tarka. You believe in what I say, finish. But here it is not like that. It is something which is transcending the tarka. That means you explore. Therefore, there is a state of mind where we are not in the tarka aspect of, we don't take the support of the tarka, but I would like to listen to it. So this is level where it is called as nirvitarka samadhi. That means to say I don't bring in the tarka, I just leave it aside. But then I can really now in a transaction, I so that I'm the master of the intellect. That means when I need to bring in intellect, I bring in. Otherwise, I don't bring in intellect. I enjoy the whole situation. Last time that I was giving the example of my granddaughter, says that there is no logic in that. She says, "Tell me where should I hide?" And then, okay, you search for me. Wow, what a beautiful. You see, you can start appreciating the beauty of it when you don't bring in the logic behind it. So, therefore, there is a region where you transact, you enjoy that, not like that you are the slave of a tarka or logic, intellect, but you are above the level of tarka or logic. And that is the transaction which richness is there within us. There is so much that is there. And by doing that, it's not that we are not becoming intellectual, we are becoming stupid. That's not at all. But we transcend that. We become the masters of intellect. Where to use it, where not to use it, that we have the freedom. Then what happens with us is, he says about the vichara. Vichara is actually a thought. Here he says that 4 stages: examination, discrimination. Well, I have a different kind of an idea about this. Vichara is a very simple thing, is thought. Now, what happens with us is that we always have the thoughts, and the thoughts are basically created from, we pick it up from the intellect, we pick it up from the memory. That means earlier my experience was something like that. So with that thought, now I enter into the world now. In the present world, I enter into with that. Oh, last time my experience was like that. So therefore, that I have a thought, and then I enter into that. Yeah. So when we enter with somebody, enter into the world with the already preformed thought, that means you are not fully participating in the world outside. In the world outside, that you are participating with the glass, with the filter that's already formed because of the previous impression. Or many times what happens, it's not only your impression, somebody has given that impression. Like a very a simple example. I mean, I try to give practical example because I want to show you that how it is applicable in the day-to-day life. I was in Florida, and I was about to give on Sunday that I was a guest in some American lady's house, and then we were giving a Sunday whole day workshop. All that was there, and she was a professor in the university, dean in the university. So I was with her. Actually, she came to Detroit also one time. So I was with her, and then somebody came and opposite to us in the university. And then looking at me, you know what naturally happens was that he's an Indian face, I'm an Indian face. So naturally, hello, hello, immediately that start. So then I said, so you are visiting from India? I said, yes, I'm visiting from India. And then I said, which part? I said, I'm from Bangalore. I asked him, so you are from India? I said, no, I'm from Pakistan. So the moment that he said Pakistan, look at the way that I have a different thought now. And then he said his name Ahmad or Muhammad or something like that. And then he asked me that, so you're visiting, you have any seminar? Or, I said, no. And what do you do in India? I mean, you live in America? I said, no, I live in India only. That I came here just to visit. So you have any seminar? I said, no. You see, these are all obvious questions he's asking. And I'm trying to avoid it. And I said, what do you do? I say, long time ago, I left being an engineer. I don't even know the spelling of engineer now. But then at that point of time, I said, I'm an engineer. Oh, okay, you're an engineer. What kind of an engineer? Whatever it is. Then he said that you have any seminar? No, there is no seminar. Then you came. You came for a visit? I said, yeah, I'm visiting USA. So welcome to USA. This thing. I said, this is my nth visit. See, look at the difficulty now. I'm trying to save myself, becoming a very defensive. Because that one simple thought that is from Pakistan and then the Muslim. Anybody asked, I would have immediately said that I'm a yoga teacher. But then there, I was avoiding that. So engineer. Then he said, do you have any family here in Florida? I said, no, this American lady is my friend. I mean, I could see that in his mind, he must have thought how fool you are. You have an American friend and every year you visit here and then you don't have any family and then there's no conference and all that. What the heck are you doing here? But then he's very polite. He didn't say all those things. In this process, I'm trying to avoid saying that. Suddenly I realized, my God, I'm interacting with him. I'm not interacting with him. And he is only just about 5%. 95% is my own thought that he's a Muslim, he's an American, he does not, and he's a Pakistani, and he doesn't like Indian philosophy. Whole lot of things. Suddenly, I realized, I said, no, I long back gave up engineering, retired from that, and I'm a yoga teacher. I give yoga, seminar and all that. Wow, I love yoga. You see, ever since we have become Pakistan, I didn't have an opportunity to learn about yoga, but before that, my family were deeply interested in yoga. We were doing all those things. I'm so blessed that you are here in this place. Are you giving any yoga? Then, not only that I talked about it, but then even that lady also, American lady, said, yeah, please come to our house that on Sunday that we are going to have one day workshop and all those things. We both realized that we were inhibiting ourselves. A thought which is supposed to help us, a thought will also inhibit us if we do not have the freedom to manage that thought. So therefore, the thoughts are good, but then thoughts inhibit us if you are not very careful about that. Or in other words, you are not a master of that particular thought. And then we are. You see, if it were not there within me, I wouldn't have even changed the whole scenario. But which is there within me, at once we changed it. Now we come out from there. This is what Patanjali says, that there is one thing called as that you are in the level of thought. It's very safety mechanism, very good that you know about things that are there. Like the way that, just now Sita was saying that Detroit is minus 15 degrees or something like that. That yeah, I have to take it. And then accordingly, I work with that. This is something which is really necessary. But then what is more important than this, I should be able to transcend the thought. It's a very beautiful way Patanjali puts it. It's an extraordinary, wonderful, brilliant approach of Patanjali. He said, you go from thought to thinking. See, there is a big gap between the thought and thinking. In fact, I don't think that any language dictionaries will give any difference between these two. But a person who really goes deep into himself, he knows very clearly the difference is that thought is something which is solidified. Thought is like the river which is stagnant. It's a lake which is not flowing. Whereas thinking is something like flow. Thinking is vibrant. Thinking is in the present. Thought is not in the present. Thought is always in the past. And thought may not be yours. And another thing is, very important thing is, thought is based on some different circumstances. Now it's a different circumstances. So look at the big difference between that. Such a huge gap between the thought and thinking. And we all have that. I can very clearly see the difference between thought and thinking. That is what Patanjali says, that you have a state of mind, which is you are the master of it, that you are the peaceful state of mind. You are samadhi yourself. And on this samadhi, now you can add the aroma of intellect, vichara, vitarka, and now you can add the aroma of what is called as vichara, but you can also take away that particular thing and say nirvichara, where it is that you are not in the form of thought, but in the form of thinking. Because what is the idea is that you need to flow, you need to be the reality. See, this world, it is said that what is the essential feature of the creation? Creation is a flow. So we have to be with the flow, not stagnant. That's what is the way that this is the movement from the thought to thinking. So vichara is there, one thing which is supposed to be thought. Thought is necessary, like the way that intellect was necessary, thought was also necessary to give some idea for that. But then don't get caught up in the thought. You have a freedom to see that how you can go from thought to thinking. Many times, if you do not realize that, we get caught up in the thought, and then what happens is thought misguides us. Thought misguides us. Thought does not see what is the reality. I had a good friend who was a medical doctor. He talks a lot. And he develops conversation because that's what is the way he thought that being a doctor, that he has to develop that rapport with this patient. But then many times the way that patient says one symptom and then he suggests a couple of other symptoms, slowly what happens is the patient is led to believe that he has those symptoms. In the process, by the time that 15 minutes later, the doctor diagnoses something which the patient is not. When suddenly he realized, when we were sitting and having these discussions, he suddenly realized. He said, "Wow, something like this can happen." Then what happened is that he kept his small little tape recorder, and then conversation he recorded. And then later on in the evening, when he listened to the conversation, he realized that where all that he misled the patient to symptoms. The patient does not have a symptom, but then you mislead to the patient to that symptoms. See, that means that you are guided by the thought, and it's very subtle. At least logic is something, vitarka is something which is gross, whereas being led by the thought is which is very subtle. So therefore, at a deeper level, that we have this kind of a slavery, which is there where we can be guided by the thought, but come out of that and then go to the thinking process, which is always there within us. And in fact, that's more lively. That's what is something which you are. So therefore, savitarka to nirvitarka, like that savichara, the next come to nirvichara. This is another samadhi state, peaceful state, where you can be peaceful without the thought, but in the process of thinking. But then what happens that time, vitarka vichara, then ananda. See, all these things are for the sake of ananda. Anything that we do, it's for the sake of ananda. That means a simple little comfort, simple little happiness. That's what we look at. So we hold on to that ananda, and for that sake that we do it. So sa ananda, that means a person is really deep in meditation, or he has the deep state of mind where he is blissful. He accepts the blissful nature of him very easily. That's one of the reasons why that children are at that level, because that vitarka vichara are not formed. Therefore, that they are blissful. They are simply jumping with joy. They look at your face and smile. There's no reason why they have to smile, because that vitarka vichara has not yet started. So therefore, that they are just naturally in the state of bliss. That was our state. Actually, bliss is being in that state, that you hold on to the state of yours where you don't play the intellect, you don't play the vichara, and then be free from these two things. And that's what is the state of bliss. We do that. In fact, whenever you just go to the beach or something like that, or by the side of the lake, you sit down, as you just stop everything, and then you're just sitting there watching either sunset or sunrise, or the water that's there in front of you, and the beautiful breeze that's going on. What is happening? You are just in the state of bliss. But you think that object outside is giving you the bliss. We think that the situation outside is giving the bliss. No, the situation outside appears to be giving bliss because all other things that were disturbing you, that you put it aside, and then you are sitting there. You're sitting there. So this is what is the state of bliss that is there, is putting all the other things aside and sitting in the boat in the lake that is there. So many times I've experienced it with Deepti. And that sitting there is just being yourself. And what is that yourself? Is Ananda. That's a blissful state experience that we have. So therefore, what happens is that when the moment that you come out of vitarka, that means nirvitarka, come out of vichara, nirvichara, then what you are there is sa ananda. you are in a blissful state. Ananda is yourself. It's not that something else is giving you Ananda, but you are in the state of Ananda yourself. But what happens with us is that when we are in the state of Ananda, immediately we attribute the Ananda to something else, somebody else outside. Oh, Ananda is there in this, Ananda is there in that. All those things that we attribute. So therefore, that our Ananda is always appears to be parasitic. That means it's an object oriented, object dependent. This is where, at a very subtle level, we can easily get hooked onto this Ananda aspect of it. Very subtle level. Now, what is reality is that you need to get out of that also. Therefore, Sa-ananda, then you come out of it, Nirananda. Normally, what happens if you do not understand this mechanism behind it, understand the bliss idea behind it, then you slip down to a state where it is not having Ananda. You slip down, and then now you go behind the object for sake of Ananda, behind situation. We would like to have a company of those people who always praise you because you are Ananda. That fellow praising, giving me Ananda. So this is what is the way that again you become enslaved with the world outside. Whereas you have a state where who has this Ananda? Who has experience of this Ananda? If you look at it, it's you. So therefore, the object is not really giving you Ananda, but then you are there behind it, and that's what you are original, and that's what is supposed to be Asmita. So when you transcend the Ananda, that's when you become Asmita. And that state is there within us. We are that. In fact, there is a small little clarity that I need to give, that this Asmita where we have transcended, Vichara, Vitarka, Vichara, Ananda, then it becomes Asmita, and that state is there within us. And this Asmita, we don't have a better word to translate in English. We call it as, only one that we have is ego. And then ego, in Sanskrit, we have two words. One is called as Ahankara. Ahambhava is the ego. And second thing is Asmita. What is this Asmita? That's something which is originally responsible for us. We are that Asmita. It is not loaded with the object outside. Whereas Ahankara is loaded with the object outside. What we call it as ego is I'm egoistic because of the money, because of this, because of that. So, see, that means ego is always depending upon what is there outside. And ego is actually built because of the world outside. Because if you are all alone in the forest, what is there to show to the world outside? There is nothing. Because that you are in a community or society, yes, you have so many things to show. So therefore, that your ego is for the sake of the world outside. In fact, somebody said that in the house, the most wonderful place is the guest or visitor comes, that you sit down outside, and that is nicely, and we don't use it. It's only when guest comes, he sits there. It's for the sake of somebody else. And that's where we put all the wealth and all the material and all that and show beautiful things, that such a beautiful place is there. And that fellow comes and sits there for half an hour and goes away, has a cup of chai and all that and goes. Other than that, we don't use that place. See, that means basically that it is to show to somebody else. So it is like that we are. Whereas our living room, many times we all live in the kitchen and dining hall itself. There, everybody is sitting there. That's the best place in the house, actually, if you look at it. So what you are is that. So ego is something about the world outside, but Asmita is your own. Asmita is what you are built. In fact, the consciousness becomes Asmita in the first place. And that Asmita has three different aspects of it. One is called as the doer Asmita, the Katrutva Asmita. The second thing is identifier Asmita, Bhoktrutva Asmita. And third is the Jnatrutva. It is the identifier is Jnatrutva. And experiencer Asmita, and that's what is supposed to be the Bhoktrutva. So that means to say we have these three asmita which actually build us. We are built on that particular asmita. And that's what is our identification with that. Like the very simple example is that I'm a man, I'm a woman. This is something which is asmita within us. It is not about ahankara at all. It's not about ego. It's something with our identification. And there also we have further identification with that I'm a son and I'm a daughter, or I'm a father, So these are the things which are again asmita that is there. And asmita is a responsibility. Asmita is also the function that we do it. These are the things which will give us that asmita. And that's what is holding us together in the society, in the world. There is nothing like ego about it. Further asmita that is there, this identification, like for example, I take up a job and then I have that asmita of that job. It is something which I take it so that I finish the job. But the moment the job is done, it's over. It's no more there. Like for example, when I'm singing, I'm a singer. When I'm not singing, I'm an ordinary person. Similarly, when I'm doing a job, I belong to that job. I'm an engineer while I'm working as an engineer. I'm a doctor when I'm in this medical field. But then when the moment I finish that, I come out of it. It's what beautifully is said by the king, Bhojaraja. He says that when I'm on the throne, I'm a Bhojaraja. When I come down from the throne, I'm Bhoja, that's all. I'm not a Raja, I'm not a king. I'm free from that. So therefore, this is Asmita, and you must have it. If a doctor will not become like a doctor when he is or she is doing that medical job, then she is useless. Similarly, a prime minister has to be prime minister. That asmita should be there. He carries that. It's a responsibility. Then he becomes like Modi. When he doesn't do that, he becomes like Manmohan Singh, So naturally, what happens is that we need to have that identification with us, that asmita, which is very deep within us. We can similarly the experience, bhoktrutva. That means to say, I touch something, it is hot. I feel it is hot. That feeling that it is hot saves me from abusing myself. Or it is cold. Yes, I know that it is cold. Nobody can deny me that no, it is not hot. It's hot. It's very simple. The reason why I feel hot, the others do not feel hot, may be something. It is like that. I may be having some health issue because of which I feel hot. That's a different issue, but I cannot deny that I'm feeling the hot. So it's not dependent upon the outside, but it's depending upon your own experience, and that experience you cannot deny. So therefore, we must have that asmita, which is something which is very important deep inside. It does not depend upon even ananda. It is asmita is your own. Asmita is absolutely yours. So therefore, we are with that asmita. There are moments where we are with that asmita. But then anugamat, when you go beyond this asmita identification, that's what you are. That's what is the consciousness. Pure consciousness does not have this idea of that you are a man or a woman. Even that is discrimination is not there. You are young or old. All these things are not there. Including the level you are a human being or an animal, even that's also not there because that's also outside. That is when the Indian philosophy said that how we have that kind of a compassion or the oneness with the whole universe itself, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. That oneness that we had the feeling, not just with only human being, with all the creatures on the earth, everything that is there, because we have that aspect within us. There are moments we feel that we give the asmita behind it, we are with that. So that means to say all these states are there within us. These are all the states within the mind. If we did not have these states, we would not have gone to those experience of those states. When Buddha went for meditation, then when he came back after the meditation, somebody asked him, what is that you got by meditating? I said, I did not get anything. Actually, I lost. He said, what did you lose? I said, I lost my ignorance. I never thought that I had all these things, but then suddenly I realized that all these things are there within me. This is what our Shastras say. Shastras cannot say that all these practices that you are doing are not going to give you anything. But whatever that is there external is being removed because there are states within us. Therefore, Samadhi Pada is before even the Sadhana Pada starts because it indicates about the states within us. Ultimate state of even this Nirvikalpa Samadhi is always there within you, is there within me. We have that. This is a very big assurance. Very big assurance. In fact, that's a very important thing. In fact, Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, when he went through that highest state of Samadhi, actually there is such a beautiful incident that happened. He was stuck with the goddess Kali, and then he was seeing the Kali's image. Vision was there and everything was there. And then he was blissful in that. And there were moments when he comes out of that, he was crying, "Oh, Kali is not there, and you left me alone. And I'm suffering. Look at me, look at me." I became so sensitive now. Actually, he was so sensitive that even for him to sit down or lie down, they used to have to put the tender banana leaves on which he would sleep. Otherwise, that his body was burning because of all those things. So he was doing all that kind of thing because he was in such a sensitive divine mother was there. And then what happened was Totapuri came into the scene. And Totapuri came, he said that, "Come on, go beyond the level of Kali. Just destroy that Kali and then go beyond. Nirvikalpa. There is no Vikalpa." So how can I destroy the Kali? I said, "Who created Kali for you? You created. The same mind through which that you created this Kali, destroy that." But how? Take out the sword. She has the sword in her hand. Take that sword out and cut off her head. Finish. But he was not prepared to do it. He said, "No, I can't do it." "Okay, all right, I will help you." Totapari was very, very adamant on that. And then he asked him to go to meditation. When he went into meditation, he got into such a deep meditation. And that when he was in the vision of Kali, he had that bliss on his face, Ananda. And that state he was there experiencing. And that is when Totapuri took out a piece of glass and then pierced his forehead. And that piercing of the forehead is like the way that it is enacting piercing the sword into Mother, into Kali. And that shattered the whole image of Kali. And then he entered into Nirvikalpa Samadhi. When he entered into Nirvikalpa Samadhi, Totapuri was waiting. Half an hour he will come out, half an hour he will come out. 3 hours he did not come out, 6 hours he did not come out. Now Totapuri is worried. What is going to happen? Of course, later on, Ramakrishna came out after 3 days. Totapuri is okay. What happened? And he was in the highest state of Samadhi, where all these things were not there, even the Nirvikalpa. Then Totapuri asked him, "What happened to you?" He said, "This experience I had when I was a child." That means it's already there within me. Then he recollected that incident where he was a small little boy, 7-year-old boy, going with his parents to the field, in Bengal, the fields are flat because it's, river mouth, ocean side. So therefore, flat land, the flat land for stretch, and then it's such a beautiful, fertile land, stretches of green fields, pastures, this, that, they were there. Any length that you could see, it is like a green carpet that is there, glittering, beautiful green carpet, and touching the horizon, and the dark clouds, pregnant clouds that were there. And that very scenery itself is something which is beautiful. Added to that, the setting sun on the other side created a beautiful full-size rainbow. And when you see that kind of a situation with a rainbow, you are so extraordinarily, filled with that joy, as if that beauty was not sufficient. God added one more thing, and that was a flock of swans were flying across the sky. And not only that, white swans were flying across the sky, the setting sun was reflecting on the wings of the swans, reflecting golden orbs, golden color. When he saw all those things as a boy of 7-year-old, he was so enchanted, mind became quiet. At once he entered into that quiet state. Not only that the mind became quiet, dissolved, But along with that mind, body, everything got dissolved. His breath is almost like come to the nil, and then he could not walk. The eyes became languid. He was just standing there. The people who were walking, they were talking, and suddenly they saw this boy standing there. They came running to this boy, and they found out he was like, stiff, rigor mortis. Body has absolutely no movement at all. And the breath they tried to see, breath was not there. They looked around shocked because any snake or something bit him, but then there was no signs of it. But the boy seemed to be dead. All that they understand is he is dead. So therefore they started crying and picked him up, and then they brought him home. And then made him to lie down, and then they were crying around him. But this boy suddenly died. After about an hour, this boy suddenly got up and then started jumping with joy. He said, "What happened to you? Why are you crying?" I said, "Why are you crying? What happened to you? That you are almost like dead." He said, "No, I was not dead. I was blissful." But then he didn't know what to say. But then they didn't know what exactly happened. All that they knew was that this boy is okay now. There seemed to be no problem with him. So they became satisfied. Okay, everything is all right. But this impression that was there in Thakur, he did not know what exactly happened when he was a 7-year-old boy. But this time, when Totapuri came and gave him the experience of Nirvikalp Samadhi, he said, "Oh, this was an experience which was there when I was 7-year-old." If Thakur, when he was 7-year-old, he had that experience, that means he has the same consciousness drawn all the way to the body. We also have the consciousness all the way to the body. We also have all these states of experience within us. We all have that experience within us. States are there within us. Only thing is, sometimes we catch it, sometimes we don't catch it. Nirvikalpa, definitely we might not catch it. But other states of samadhi, like for example, nothing really matters to you, nothing enters into you. You are just peaceful inside, doing your work. And then suddenly somebody says that, "Hey, what is that? I came to you, I called you," and then you didn't even realize that. "Oh, is it like that?" You might say that. You might come to that level. That means basically you are also there in that samadhi state, but at the same time that you do not have any stimulus from the outside coming and entering into you. So this is the state that you get into, all these things that you come across. In fact, many times it used to happen to me like that. Those days when I did not even know what is all these things. You know, just I'll share a personal experience, but that's not. Uh, I just want to show that you may also have this kind of an experience. That's why I'm sharing. Uh, in my house, that everybody used to call me that I'm my mother's son because he used to show extraordinary love for me, and that was true also. And then she would ask me especially, "What can I do for you for lunch?" I would ask something. And then she prepares that and then keeps that one in a quarter plate and a separate plate outside my regular thali. For everybody, it used to be like that. It's outside my regular thali that is there. And then I would eat food in thali, but I would not see what is there by the side. Everybody would have finished, probably they would have had second time and all that. I finish my food and get up, and that plate is still sitting there with all that object. That's it. Everybody used to shout. You see, you are a special child for the mother, and then she makes specially for you, and then you don't even eat. What kind of arrogance? I wouldn't even understand why I did not eat. I say, "Yes, I like it, I wanted it, I specially asked for it, but I didn't see it. I didn't see it." Why? Because that your attention is here, the rest of the mind is in samadhi. That means samadhana sthiti. It's not, the stimulus outside does not affect you. You are focused on that. And this is a simple mind. And that's what is the state which Arjuna had also when Drona said to Arjuna that look at the eye of the bird. Arjuna looked at the eye of the bird. "Did you see the bird?" He said, "No, I only see the eye of the bird. Nothing beyond that." So these states, we all have it, but only thing is that Arjuna could use it. Maybe I was getting that kind of an idea during those days when I was a child. But later on, I realized that when going through the conscious practice of yoga meditation, oh, these were the states which are already there. So that means to say all these states are there within us, and that's what he says, Vitarka, Vichara, Ananda, Smita, and Anugamat Sampragnataha. These are all belong to the Sampragnata Samadhi, all those things. And then Virama Pratyabhyasa Purvaha Samskara Shunyaha. Samskara Sesha Anyaha. Now he goes to the next level. See, this itself is so extraordinary. None of these things being there, but he goes further. Pratyajabhyasa Purvaha Viramaha. Samskara Sesha Anyaha. Now, all these things are outside stimulations, outside activity. See, Tarka, Vichara, Ananda, these are all the things which are about the Asmita. All these things about the outside. But then after going from outside, then there are inside that we have various states that are there. So therefore, until now, what is called as Sampragnata Samadhi, that means Pragnata Sahita Samadhi. Now, there is no Prajna outside, Asampragnata, but then that is Samadhi that is there. So there are several layers that are there within the Asampragnata level. We have several layers. And this is the other kind of Samadhi that we have, is that which is consciousness containing absolutely no object. Pratyaya Abhyasa Purvaha, only a subconsciousness impressions are there. Deep inside there are impressions that are there. They are still sitting. I may not use it. I may not be using the logic behind it. All those things you have transcended. But then there are still impressions that are there within me at the unconscious level. This is what is samskara purvaha. Purvaha samskara. That means to say, you are not what you are today. You are somebody who has come from your parents. And parents have come from their parents. And their parents have come from their... See, look at the way that how long that all those impressions are there. A simple light that is coming from a star, which is so many light years away from us, by the time the star can throw the light, it comes to us, the star is already gone. That means the light that we see actually originated somewhere and then came to us. If a light can come like that, subtler than the light is the consciousness through which has passed through so many things. So how many samskaras that we have gone through? That's why Darwin's theory is so important, because that, as Darwin puts it, we are from that level where there was no creation has taken place to, from that to the creation happened. But only thing is, it's not a linear kind of thing. It is there from within evolutionary sizes. The evolution that Western science talks about is a linear evolution. That's why they find out when was the thing started. Whereas in Indian philosophy, it is evolution to involution. It is like a evolution which is through like a springing from within. That means to say, within you, there was a time where there was absolutely no nothing. And from that line, that slowly building up started. Even before the physical building up or the conscious building up started, unconscious level journey that you have made, all those impressions are there. You are not a human being that today. You are not a girl or a boy today. You are something which has happened from the time of since the time of creation. It's such a deep impression that is there. So what is that samskara that we have? When you look at it, it's such deep-rooted samskara. And all that thing is there somewhere deep inside in our memory. Memory is in terms of various layers. That's why I said there are certain memories which are in the outer layer, certain memories in the deeper layers. Much subtler levels that we have the layers that are there, we have the identification with that. All these things are there within us. And this samskara goes back to the creation itself. And that when you come out of this creative force, then you become one with the Swarupa, with the Brahman. So therefore, that there is, once you come out of even this level of using the intellect, using the impressions of the thought that is there, the thinking, and from that we go to the experience of Ananda. But beyond that, we are much more deeper. In fact, one thing that comes out from that is what is called as abhinivesha, that means fear. Fear of death. You never had an experience of death. You never so far died. Gulab jamun is nice. This is not nice because you have experienced that. All those things are there. Mother is good, mother-in-law is not good. Yeah, that's experiences there. All these things are based on experience. But deep inside you have the fear of death. Where is that it's coming from? You never had any experience. Is it not something which is something which is much more deeper? Like that, when you look at it, there may be so many things that are there. It may come from deep inside. So all those things that you grasp, then only you really become one with the self. Wow, when Patanjali said very clearly, Tatha Drashtu Swarupe Avasthan, by doing yoga, you become yourself. It's not just doing some Padastasana, Atha Chakrasana, then you go to the self. Wow, Patanjali goes that deep. Therefore, he says that samskara shunya, samskara sesha. We have the sesha, we have the traces of samskara that is there within it. When I cross beyond that samskaras, and that's what is anyaha. Anyaha means that is not from the samprajnata samadhi, but that is what is supposed to be asamprajnata samadhi. So now he goes to a totally different level, transaction that is there. And from that, we come out of it. So this is the idea. Bhava pratyayaha prakriti dayanam. But let me go into that. Virama pratyaya abhyasa purvaha. Pratyaya abhyasa purvaha. Any object that is there, anything that we come across, it always creates an impression on us. First time you see, second time already that this impression is there, you try to match with that. And that's how we we establish a continuum. The creation is a particular continuum, not only within ourselves, outside also. Outside the way that we have created the continuum, inside also that we have created a continuum. So inside we have created a continuum right from the time that we were generation after generation after generation that we come through. So therefore that this continuum is actually basically it is because of abhyasa purvaha. There is one that's one of the reasons, because that we have that abhyasa, we come out in the form of what we are. There is one long time ago I've seen an American movie. It's a movie with psychology base or something like that. And there, the little child is there and the mother, that they were very nice, wonderful, beautiful relationship and their food, play and all that. And then mother says to the child, now dad is coming. The moment dad comes, you say hi to him, give him a kiss, and then go to bed. It's the time to go to bed. And she insisted, she was very convincing the child about that. And the child also comes and kisses and then goes to bed. But then the real problem starts now. Then he comes and then he throws about all those things and shouts at her, this is bad, that is bad. You make the food and then he throws the whole cutlery that is there with all the food, dishes that is there. Wow. And then find fault with everything. Till now, it was like such a peaceful state. Now suddenly war started. And he shouts. So beautifully, the director, his shout, he compared it with the dog which is barking, a very vicious dog barking. And he finds fault with all that, the cooking that she has done. So beautifully he did it that he opened the refrigerator, took out the can of dog food and put it in the microwave, stuck in the microwave, and then prepared that food, gave it to him, and he enjoyed that. Just to give an idea that he became like a dog. He has absolutely no semblance of samskara of a human being. Much before that, what Darwin said, that you come from monkey or dog, that he became that. He likes the dog food. And then howling continues that way. You see, the beautiful thing is that all these things are built, and then whatever that samskara becomes very prominent, that's what builds you up, brings you up. That's why it is said that once you're a human being, you're always a human being, because that your mind will never go back from the consciousness of a human being to any other consciousness. You can think of it, you can imagine, but you can never change your consciousness into, say, a donkey's consciousness, a dog's consciousness. You cannot take it. In Jataka Kathas, in the Buddhistic stories, there is one thing like that. This Buddhistic monk was very peaceful and everything was peaceful. But then what happened? There was nothing to do. And then his few days, that last days of life, he is living peacefully. And then some deer actually traced into his land. And then he started taking care of it. Deer is a nice, wonderful, peaceful animal. Started feeding that. Then he died. Next life, he became like a deer with all the kind of knowledge that he had, vast knowledge. That's what is Jataka. And he talks like a wisdom, but he's like a deer. So the idea is that you are filled with one thought and that becomes like what you are. So samskara, whatever that we fill our thought with, whatever we carry, that's what brings us back into our life. So the real samadhi is the state where samskara sesha, that means whatever that balance that we have created as samskara, even go beyond that anyaha. That's what is the idea of asampragnat samadhi. And that asampragnat samadhi is not just one level. There are some levels there, states there. And that's what he goes into the details of this. Bhava pratyayaha videha prakriti layanam. When such samadhi is not accomplished by non-attachment and ignorance therefore remains, the aspirant will reach the state of the disincarnated gods and become merged in the forces of nature. Now he does not become like a human being, but he is there in the forces of nature. See, look at the way that when you look at the nature, there are several forces, several types of things that are there. And those forces will influence us. See, when you look at the nature, that what we call it as the various aspects of the nature, we always called us, we have given them. The rest of the world gives these forces as the force. Whereas we have given the forces the human figure, like various gods. Wind is a god, river is a god. See, the reason why we gave that kind of a picture of gods is that we want to place them which is higher than the human being. When you call it as force, a force does not have the consciousness behind it. The force is like neutral. The force does not have a preference. Force is non-material. I mean, it is still within the non-conscious kind of a thing. Yes, electricity is there. Electricity is there, we use it. Electricity is slave. You see, that's what some religions have taken that objection to the way, particularly Islam has taken objection to, saying that we worship all these things like gods, whereas God created all these things as slaves. Wind is a slave for you, sun is a slave for you, you use it like the way that you use your slave. The slave practice was there so much in that country, in those cultures, that they actually used to trade the slaves in the market. In fact, there's a story that Diogenes, such a great philosopher, and somebody actually took him and he was like a slave and he wanted to sell him in the market. But Diogenes is more intelligent than that fellow. He said, you don't sell, I sell myself. I get a better place for you. So that, I mean, stories like that is there. That means to say, that culture took the whole nature as to be slaves. That's why when we try to worship that, they feel that we are primitive. But then understand the primitiveness is not in the worship or anything. What is the way that you give value for that? When you give a value of the divinity for that, then we really worship that. And we had given that value for that. Why? Because when you remove all these things that are there, now you don't have a reason to become a particular individual. Then you become like the energy that is there. It can become a human being or not become a human being. These energies that are there within us. So therefore, we have two things. One is called as that consciousness, which is in the form of energy, but another thing is consciousness in the form of all this body and everything that is there. That means to say manifested level and consciousness behind the energy. See, whenever we do any activity, we have energy behind that activity. And that energy is not just simple energy. That energy is something like a divine force which is working behind it. You know, when Vivekananda, whenever he said something, it's not just the words that carried the message, but it is that energy that is there which is extraordinary. We'll talk about that. We'll see that how those things are now the next level that we reach into. Try to understand next time. Thank you. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Thank you.
Thank you and namaste.
Namaste. It's very, for me at least, very